seems everybody loves this man. He's Chris Waddell. He's the greatest disabled racer ever. He also competed in the Summer Games in Sydney, Australia.
I won a silver in the 200 meters, so it was my first summer games, or first summer medal, and it was just great. It was good for me to be able to, be fit and participate in the summer too.
Presenting a four-time Paralympian who holds a total of 15 World Championships and Paralympics medals, Chris Waddell.
Life is as easy as ABC. The problem for a lot of us is that we go from A to C. A is the activating event, and C is the corresponding emotion. Give you an example, and this might not apply to all of you, but it certainly applies to me. Does it drive you crazy when somebody's driving slowly in the left lane? I mean, it feels like a conspiracy, like this person is intentionally slowing down. You know, I mean, this person is ruining my life and making me late, right? Intentionally. I mean, that's the A, is the activating event, and C is, you know, the corresponding emotion. And this person's giving me C. I mean, it goes straight from A to C. It's like, that person's in front of me, and I'm mad now. You know, to the point where eventually you pass the person, and you give them that look, you know? And you know what that look means? That look means that there are 3 lanes here. There's the travel, there's the slow lane, and then there's the passing lane. And the passing lane actually implies action. It means that you are actually passing someone. You're not just hanging out there like, hey, yeah, it's my birthright. I get to, you know, drive in the left-hand lane. B is the belief in A. Not everybody is like me. You know, if we take 1,000 people and then come up upon somebody who's driving slowly in the left lane, not everybody is going to think, I'm mad that this person is in front of me. Not everybody thinks that. Some people go, you know what, I'm probably going too fast, and I should probably slow down. You know, this is an opportunity to smell the roses, you know? We should just kind of take it easy. Thank you very much for reminding me that I was going too quickly. I really appreciate it. You know, I don't know these people, but I'm sure there are people out there who would think that. And so, you know, but we do have this power. We do have this power to get the events that happen to us, these activating events. A, we do have the power to look at these events and interpret how we're going to feel about them. I do instructional ski camps throughout the country, and a few years ago, I was doing one up at Crystal Mountain, and we were training. There were, I don't know, a few of us training on this course, and it was a GS, and it was a really difficult GS. I mean, it was just really turny, and it was difficult. To make matters worse, the guy who said it put in these helper gates, and a helper gate is showing you should finish your turn. The thing is, it's not like, this wasn't like dye on the snow, you know? It wasn't like a little color-coded, you should have your turn done by here. This was an actual physical pole that said, you should be done by here. Problem is, if you're not done by there, things get ugly. And for one of the guys who was skiing, things got ugly on a run-by-run basis. So finally, the sun's slipping behind the mountains, and I say, okay, look, this is our last run, and I watch this guy ski from the top, and I'm cheering him down. I mean, literally, with each turn, I'm like, yeah, Pat, looking good, okay, stay right there, good, start your turn, okay, finish it, good. Everything's good, and about 3/4 of the way down, he got low and didn't finish his turn in time, and caught this helper gate and flipped over about 3 times, and I'm just watching it going, oh man, you know, and I gave him his time. This is important, you have to give people their time. I gave him his time, and I went down, and he was just getting up at this point. He looked at me with these wild eyes. And, oh boy, here we go. And he looked at me and he said, I love this sport. I'm like, okay, that's not necessarily the response that I was expecting, but it was great. You know, I mean, he looked at it in an entirely different way, and he begged me at that point. He's like, come on, let me take one more run. I was like, all right, go up. And that was the only run that he finished all day, was the run after that. So we have the ability, you know, to look at these events and say, you know, I'm gonna interpret this however.
Do any of you remember not being able to read? Or not being able to walk? Really? Okay, good. Good. We have one here. But think of those two things. I mean, learning how to recognize letters on a page or on the refrigerator or whatever it is, and eventually you learn that those letters have sounds that are associated with them, create words and sentences, and if you can read, you can learn anything. I have a niece who's 2 years old, and I remember watching her learn how to walk. And watching a kid learn how to walk, first of all, it's completely unfair. Have you seen these kids? I mean, their heads are bigger than anything else in their body, and then they have these protruding stomachs and these butts that stick out, you know, and they're and these tiny little feet. Tiny little feet, right? The head gets a little too far forward. Whoa, you know. And I'm watching my niece, it was like her feet were flexing the whole time. Because, oh, head's too far forward. Oh, head's too far back. Oh, no. You know, and it's like, but eventually she took a step, and then she took 2 steps. And then now, you know, it's like she never knew how to, or she always knew how to walk, is what it looks like. When I started skiing again after my accident, I didn't remember learning how to ski. But for me, it was this sense of mastery that we learn early on, when we're reading, that we learn when we're walking, but I learned it again a second time. I learned to do something that I knew how to do, but I had to learn it from the very beginning. The first time I went out skiing, I went with my ski coach up at college. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know, you go to the top, right? You know, and I figured I'd fall. But I didn't figure I'd fall all day long. I mean, I felt so much that he kicked his skis off and he slid behind me, holding me upright so that he could control me, but also so that he didn't have to pick me up anymore. And that day, how to turn. I finished that day without making a turn. I couldn't believe it. But eventually, I got to the point where I could go from the top to the bottom and where I could ski just about everything. And what I saw was a sense of mastery. And the mastery for me was in my vision. My vision when I first started, my vision was 10 inches in front of my ski tips. And then eventually, because initially anything had the ability to knock me over. If it was a bump, a patch of ice, a candy wrapper, anything had the ability, and I wanted to know. And so if you guys walk around later on and you look 10 inches in front of your feet, you'll do exactly what I did. You'll run into walls, you know, and all of a sudden, whoa, what's going on? But eventually I went from 10 inches in front of my ski tip to 10 feet down the hill, to 100 feet down the hill, to 100 yards down the hill. And at 100 yards down the hill, it was kind of like I had mastered the mountain. Suddenly the whole world had opened up to me, and no longer was the mountain dictating to me where I was going. I was in control.
Imagine you're a world-class athlete, that you can perform virtually any physical activity with the greatest of ease. Imagine then what it would be like if all of that was taken away from you in a split second. When Chris Waddell took to the slopes on a December day nearly 6 years ago, for him it was just another day of training, just like another day at the office, if you will. But when his ski binding in a split second unexpectedly released, sending him into a devastating fall, Chris's life would be changed forever.
I
I'd been injured before, and I figured that it was just a matter of time, and it was a matter of overcoming this injury, and the permanency never really set in, especially not while I was recovering. So it took a long time, and I figured, I still figured that I was going to ski that year, and that didn't happen. But basically, I was in the hospital for 2 months, and then I went back to school right after that. I figured that I wanted to get back into mainstream life as quickly as I could, because then I'd learn how to deal with what I had to deal with, but I also wouldn't have time to feel sorry for myself or whatever.
Chris Waddell has certainly responded well to the adversity and has in fact pushed many false stigmas about people with disabilities aside. Chris never got lost in self-pity. Instead, he searched for ways to get his life back on track. Remarkably, the first place he turned was back to snow skiing.
I just got started right away. I mean, I bought a ski before I'd even skied. So that's something that's a little bit difficult to do, just because it is so expensive. Just getting started is the biggest part. Just making the decision to get started. There are also a lot of places where you can borrow equipment, and I think it's a matter of getting in with people who are leading an active lifestyle. That's definitely it.
How does this sound for an active lifestyle? Snow skiing from November to March, wheelchair racing from April until October, water skiing, sailing, even hiking trails in a wheelchair. Chris has done everything he can to stop his disability from affecting the quality of his life. He recently appeared as a clothing model for companies such as Eddie Bauer and Patagonia. Ironically, many doors have been opened, particularly in the world of skiing, that may not have been opened before.
It's kind of interesting. I have looked at my accident as sort of a second chance, really. Getting into a monoski, essentially I went down to being a 6-year-old, being a beginner again. And I was able to go through that progression from a 6-year-old to a 14-year-old to an expert skier relatively quickly. But it was a second chance. It was a chance to go and do things over again, and to try not to make the same mistakes that I had made before. I felt like that I had never reached my potential when I was skiing able-bodied. So it was a chance to really put more emphasis on what I was doing with my mind, and hopefully when I had an opportunity, to take advantage of that opportunity. And I think that's been great, and I've actually risen to a higher level in terms of competition than I ever would have achieved.
The trophy case at the Waddell House is full of medals, including 4 Olympic and numerous national championships for monoskiing. Obviously, Chris has demonstrated an incredible will to dispel beliefs about people with disabilities through his accomplishments. Each day, he tries to send a message to people with disabilities and able-bodied people as well, that there need not be any barriers that should stop them from living life to its fullest.
It's just a matter of time, and it's a matter of people getting out there, and a matter of trying to accept people. Often it's our responsibility to have people accept us the way that we want to be perceived, and that's something that's hard. That's something that's really hard to do, but I think it's also really necessary.
What makes Chris Waddell such a unique young man is his passion for a sport that seemed to take so much away from him. His courage to take back to the slopes and perform at his level makes us all want to say, never say never.